AI agents that think, reason, and collaborate with humans. That's the agentic era. Salesforce is already living it, with agents handling over half their customer service autonomously. It plans to build billions of these agents and has pledged an investment of $15 billion on AI adoption. Arun Parameswaran is the Executive Vice President and MD for Salesforce South Asia. He brings with him 3 decades of experience. His focus? Solving problems at India scale and helping businesses expand globally. In this conversation, listen to him talking about how companies are preparing for this shift, real use cases across industries, and predictions for autonomous teams and conversational interfaces replacing traditional software. It's Monday, the 1st of December. I'm Anirban Chowdhury. You're listening to Corner Office Conversation. Hi, Arun. Very warm welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, Arun. Okay, let's start with a question that I have put to a lot of my guests, but I would want you to weigh in on that as well. What do you how do you define agentic enterprise? And what is its relevance to India?
Look, I think an agentic enterprise, in simple terms, is one where agents and humans collaborate seamlessly, right? It's not just about augmenting individuals or teams, but where you feel like the entire business is being augmented. Think about digital transformation. It was about automating existing processes, maybe tweaking a few. In the agentic enterprise, it's about creating entirely new capabilities, right? You're thinking about new revenue streams, models of work, limitless labor, what was previously unimaginable. So in a lot of senses, this is a completely new era, if you will, right? Now, when you think about it from a India perspective, the agentic era is obviously going to bring in a significant amount of business efficiency because as a country, we've tried to solve a lot of problems with labor, right? With human labor. And I think that is going to, like in every technology transformation, right? The human labor has always gravitated towards the higher level order, if you will, right? And so I think while the efficiency is a natural, I would say, outcome that we should expect, I think one of the opportunities that we will have is to manage what I call India scale, right? And think about it from that perspective. It's a generational opportunity for us, which could easily propel us from a global leadership perspective. And again, it has massive ramifications and economic growth, ability to empower MSMEs, make technology easily available. I mean, you can go on and on.
Right. Tell me about the transition from cloud to agentic enterprise. I mean, in the early days of the cloud, a lot of companies struggled with, say, with trust, with ROI, with integration. What has fundamentally changed as we enter the agentic era?
Look, I think trust is the foundation of everything that we stand for at Salesforce, right? It's our number one value. And so you think about in the agentic era, and I don't know if you've been following the latest from Anthropic, right? Where we had AI being used at the center of some really, really sophisticated attacks, right? And so when you think about what the opportunity is, you also need to make sure that you're guarding your customers, organization, and their customer data, very, very carefully. Like with everything, there are 2 sides to the coin. The risk is no longer about just a data breach, right? It's about expensively, costly errors that you could be making, which could impact your brand reputation, customer relationship, even potentially financial outcomes, right? In fact, if you think about it, 85% of executives who are investing in AI, the number one issue that they're worried about is security, privacy, and the ethical risks involved. And so I think this is a completely different paradigm compared to cloud computing, where it was mostly about data breaches, if you will, right? I think this is completely different. Imagine, you are essentially saying, I'm going to leave customer experience to an anonymous agent, right? And so The challenge now is no longer about connecting tools, but fundamentally redesigning how work gets done. And so, if you think about it from that perspective, right, um, there is a lot at stake, which means you have to be, you have to be careful about how you think about building your trust boundaries, how you think about the outcomes that you're going to be delivering, and what that means from an overall reputation and a brand perspective.
So tell me, are enough companies that you speak to, are they prepared for the agentic era? I mean, how should enterprise architecture evolve to support agentic workflows?
Look, I think the answer is that this has come at a very, very rapid pace, right? Uh, Now, go back to the basic question: how should it evolve? Right now, you think about enterprise architecture today; it is very process centric. Now, that needs to move from, I would say, process centric to intent centric. Essentially, saying you need to build for reasoning, orchestration, and autonomy. Right? Uh, Traditional systems and digital transformation over the last 10 years, we've built around workflows. Agentic systems, on the other hand, will be built around what is the intent of the task. Agents will have to interpret what are the goals that I'm trying to achieve and orchestrate the outcomes across departments and applications. It's going to require multi-agent orchestration because role-specific agents will have to collaborate across various functions like service, sales, supply chain, marketing, operations, and everything else in real time, right? And that's where our unified platform, which brings apps, data, metadata, and agents on a single code base, is designed specifically for that kind of transformation. So I think it's a very different world. Also, from a governance perspective, transparency, auditability, and observability, this is a completely different world, right? Now, for example, what do we mean by agent observability? If I decide an agent, to deliver a certain outcome, am I able to look at the outcomes that an agent has delivered over a period of time and see whether it falls into the box of what I need to deliver, right? Or is it, going outside the box continuously? So there's a lot of things that are foundationally different. And I think that's the architecture that we will see evolve over a period of time.
All right. Okay. Now, but the second part of my question: do you think enough companies that you talk to and deal with your customers are ready yet, or is this something they're still grappling with?
Look, I think everybody is learning in real time. If you
Mm,
ask me, that's the honest answer, right?
mm.
The reality is that customers know that this is not a technology bandwagon they can afford to skip. They
Yep.
understand that the speed of innovation is faster than anything that they've seen, anything I've seen in the last 30 plus years that I've been in the industry. And so the answer is you have to learn to evolve. You have to be agile. One of the good things about agentic projects is that unlike, projects in the past where it was not uncommon for you to run a project in plan for 6 to 9 to 12 months, in today's world, because you're using natural language and with our agent builder using natural language processing and reasoning to deliver most of the outcomes, you can be up and running and be having an agent in production in 6 weeks. So the whole analogy of fail fast really comes into play here. And so I think what organizations are realizing is that they have to jump in feet first. They're going to have to figure things out as they go. The technology is evolving extremely rapidly. And so you've got to be very agile in the way that you are using the technology to deliver the outcomes that you want for the business.
Mhm. Let's talk about what Salesforce is doing, and we've discussed at length about the billions of agents that you want to build and that name, etc. But so you talk about convergence of data, metadata, and AI layers. Tell me, how does that actually make systems more intelligent? And we are talking about intelligent systems and not just automated systems, right?
Yeah. I mean, think about what this represents, right? Data brings facts.
Mm.
Metadata brings the context of the facts, and AI brings reasoning. When all of these layers converge, agents move from performing tasks to making intelligent, very context aware decisions, right? Now, if you look at it from architecture perspective, Data Cloud today unifies all of the enterprise data. Our metadata platform defines how the data actually connects to the business logic. And then you bring in the agent force layer, right, that applies reasoning to act on it. Now, this allows you to ensure that every action that you're taking and every outcome you're delivering is grounded in real time data that's governed, it's contextual, and that you can explain and is auditable. But that's why I said it foundationally transforms this from doing a task to understanding why I want to do it. And is there a better way of doing it this time or next time? Right. And so that's the foundational difference that we bring to the table by bringing data, metadata, and agents together.
Got it. Tell me about customer zero. It's very interesting. What does that mean? And what does it mean in your internal transformation also?
Look, we're not just building the agentic enterprise for our customers. We are one ourselves, right? And that means we at Salesforce, right? We use our technology to run our business every day. If you look at on the service side, on the customer service side, we've already crossed the 50% mark in terms of, how many conversations are being handled by autonomous agents versus human agents. And that's across 8 different languages, running it at almost 80% first call resolution rates, right? This has helped us, bring down our support cost by almost 18%. On the sales side, our sales development representative agent now qualifies almost 10,000 leads a week. Now, remember, this is a top of the funnel problem every company has, right? And on average, not more than 3 to 5% of leads that come in from all channels are actually acted upon because there's a physical limitation on how many calls a human can make. Now, with an SDR agent, we're basically going back and qualifying more than 10,000 to 20,000 leads a week that previously would remain untouched, right? And various other examples like in IT and HR, right? If you look at it, pretty much more than 40% of all our employee requests today is being handled by agents, which is, again, think about it from that perspective, it's freeing up our teams to move to the higher order bit. And so I think this is beyond just the tools. It's about how we reshape our workforce. How do we reskill our employees, hiring for AI first roles and rethinking, everything for the agentic future.
Right. I love it that Salesforce is its first use case. But tell me about other use cases, especially for your Indian customers. How can Indian businesses benefit from the agentic era, and what is the transformation that you're driving for customers in India?
Look, like I said, one of the biggest challenges that I think agents will solve is the problem of the India scale, right? And so think about it from a perspective that if you're a retail organization that is, that's got a prospect base of 100 million plus customers, one of the biggest challenges and, the nirvana goal that every marketer wants to have is, hyper-personalization. We're able to create virtually a segment of one for every customer, right? Now, if you think about what the agentic era represents, it allows you to now solve a problem of that scale in a fairly simple way, right? And so it's not just around hyper personalization. You pick customer service in any function that you look at from an India perspective. The scale becomes the number one opportunity and challenge. And so when I think about India, that's the first thing I think about. And the second part also is start thinking about Indian companies that now want to go global, right? And this notion of a limitless or an unlimited labor platform that you potentially could use to start, going beyond boundaries, because language is no longer a barrier, because my agent can speak pretty much any language in any other part of the world, right? I am able to automate, sales, service, marketing to the point where I could have a presence in any part of the world without having to worry about the cost of doing that. That's why I said the foundational difference between the cloud era and the agentic era is that it completely removes barriers to a lot of things that earlier you and I would have thought about as, almost impossible to achieve, right? And so I think that entry barrier is completely removed. So for companies in India that have truly global ambitions, you could not ask for a greater platform that comes at such a simple and an easy way to implement and experiment with.
Would you tell me about use cases also? Like, I had a wonderful conversation with Arundhati a few months back, where she spoke about agents in agriculture. Would you talk to me about a few more use cases that are relevant to India?
Sure. Big financial services, which is the biggest, I would say, vertical when it comes to investing ahead of the curve or technology, right? There are so many parts of the financial services ecosystem today that agents are going to solve, right? Everything that, think about underwriting for credit, right? One of the foundational levers that's going to power our economy is going to be how quickly can we get credit in the hands of our people, right? You've seen the investment that the Indian government has done in building a digital stack, a public digital infrastructure stack that allows us to drive, better credit decisions to bring more people into the formal economy. Imagine now agents augmenting credit decisions where you could go from, days and weeks to, minutes and seconds to make some of those decisions at scale. Think about fraud, right? Think about anti-money laundering. I mean, these are areas where I think autonomous agents are going to have huge impact, right? If I look at the world of customer service across any domain, right? I mean, this is the easy one that I think lowest hanging fruit that everybody is attacking. Think about the concept of how quickly you could spin up a commerce site today, right?
Yep.
I mean, autonomous agents are going to be able to, you can literally, in conversational language, just talk to an agent and say, build me a commerce site that does 1, 2, and 3, connect it to my payment processor, integrate with my content library, and boom, in a matter of minutes, you have something that's up and running that ergo took like what, months to build. And so I think there's a whole bunch of capabilities, and I think that's the part that excites me the most. I mean, depending on who you speak to, India is anywhere between 5 and 50 million MSMEs, right? And a lot of these organizations have obviously moved significant steps forward from a digital perspective in the last 10 years. They now have a completely different, shot up their leg in terms of how they could leverage technology to be able to reach their customers and be able to deliver a superior experience product, or be able to expand and have access to markets that they didn't have access to before. So I think a lot of these would probably be great examples of where India is going to benefit from the agentic enterprise.
My next question is the name of a beautiful Netflix film. It's called Humans in the Loop. So how does Salesforce strike a balance between human judgment and machine autonomy?
Look, we've always believed that this era is about AI with humans, not AI replacing humans. We've said this from the beginning, that the success is going to depend on how we bring both of these together, right? And so for me, as I think about it, the reality is that in a lot of situations, right, in a lot of use cases and examples that we've seen, we've never seen, anything that goes 100% autonomous. There will be use cases where you could do a lot that's completely autonomous, but we believe the future is going to be, the human plus AI working in a trusted boundary, right? And so I think our design philosophy centers on that collaboration. It's not about substitution; it's about collaboration. It centers around that governed autonomy, but also accepting that every action that we do, is observable, auditable, and reversible. And I think the biggest piece is that, the trust layer comes as a safeguard for our customers, right? Which is, grounding the data, making sure you're masking the data, making sure you're getting rid of hallucinations, biases, all of that, right? And so I think the notion that the agentic enterprise will be 100% autonomous, I think we're still a long way from that. Our foundational belief is that it's got to be the human plus AI working together.
Finally, Arun, tell me 3 predictions for India and the world, whichever way you want to take it, as far as agentic AI is concerned next year.
Look, I think as much as I said that, you're going to have a lot of that collaboration between the humans and the agents, I do think that we'll start to see the rise of a few autonomous departments, if you will, right? There will be functions where, you will see where the data is rich and, very process oriented. Those will probably be, run by teams of agents, working with each other, right? I think the second, probably the most important part of what we will see in the future is the conversational interface replacing the traditional UI for pretty much anything in enterprise software. I mean, think about, analytics as an example, right? Where we used to clicking and dragging and adding data fields and trying to do visualization, right? Today, none of that is true anymore. You basically, we go into Tableau and say, hey, show me all the deals in my pipeline over a certain value, that are in this particular geography, and boom, right? I get a visual representation of the data that otherwise had to go through 5 different clicks, adding data streams and so on and so forth, right? And so I think, that conversational interface will now become the default standard for everything in enterprise software. And I think agents will enable that. And the last part, I shouldn't say last part, probably the piece that I think will become even more important in customers' eyes as they move into production. So, think about doing trials, POCs, production pilots. We're starting to see, production scale deployments now happening across our customer base. The trust layer will become even more important. And I think the players that will win this race are the ones that are able to convince their customers that, from a trust perspective, they got them covered, right? And so I think that is going to be extremely critical for a lot of our customers. And I think that you will see a significant amount of importance being given to that, I would say, layer, and investments in tools and capabilities that allows a CFO or a chief risk officer to say, it's okay, these autonomous agents will deliver the right outcomes for our business.
Got it. Thank you so much, Arun, for joining us.
No problem. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
That's it for today. This episode was produced by me, sound designed by Amrit Reggie. A new episode of Corner Office Conversation drops every alternate Monday wherever you get your podcast. Keep listening.